ठीक है. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, first I will just go over the concepts that we covered in the last lecture, just for myself to get an understanding how much you are following. But before that, I would like to tell you that the subject that we are studying is very exciting actually. Yani, what you have been studying as macro is just theory, but actually the subject that we are dealing with, economics, is not separate. There are many flaws in the way that economics is taught. Economics, politics, society, they are all interrelated. So, what was the cause of World War I? What was the cause of Great Depression? These are all things that we need to know. And how did the world come out of the Great Depression? All of these things have very close relationship with money and its effects. And we are going to study some of these. My goal in these lectures is that you should understand the book, The House of Debt by Mia and Sufi, which is very important. So just understanding this one book will be very useful. But before we can understand that book, I have to go through a lot of background theory to give you fill you up with the necessary background. So I was, let's see. Okay, so I want to start with review of the previous lecture. So, why do we need to learn about European history to understand economics? Answer from you.
Because modern economics is based on the European theories.
Based on?
European theories. The basis
of economics are actually lie behind the events that happened, historical events that happened in Europe or Europe.
Very good, very good. That is correct. But this is not how it is presented. The books that you read tell you that theories are mathematical equations, and they don't say anything about how this applies to Europe. The assumption is that, as you read it, that this theory applies everywhere, in Pakistan and in England and in Europe and in America. But it's not true. So, if it is not universal theory, and it is not, then to understand the theory, you have to understand the historical context of that theory. So that's the answer. So I've already answered that. So now, how do mathematics and models help in understanding economics? Yes? Since you have been trained entirely on mathematics, economics is no different from mathematics. So, what is the role of mathematics and models?
Mathematics provides the justifications to the simplification, numerical simplification.
Provides justifications.
Mathematical explanation.
Now, actually mathematics has a small role, but it is very minor.
So mathematics gives the logic to explain the idea of economics. It gives this language and logic to explain the idea of economics.
Actually, mathematics and models do not help. You see, what we are trying to do is to understand history. It is complicated. What the subject that I am trying to teach you is very complicated. There are many different pieces. They all fit together, but it's all part of human experience. It's like, if you have a very complicated drama in which there are 6 and 7 different people and they're all doing different things and they have different characters. That is the kind of thing that is economics. So it's something which everybody can understand, and it's unlike mathematics, where very complicated mathematics is something that not everybody can understand. So mathematics and models do not help in understanding economics, because it relates to experience. So what I'm trying to teach is complicated. It's not that it's simple, but it is not complicated in a way that is outside of human experience, like advanced mathematics, tensor calculus, etc. It is within your capabilities to understand, and if you understand it, then you will understand a great deal, and you will understand what students currently being taught at Harvard will not understand about economics. So, are current economic theories true? Excuse me?
So it basically varies. You cannot say that which is true or which is wrong, sir. But it varies with the behavior, and it can vary with the situation as well. Like sometimes
The kind of answer I'm looking for, please explain a little bit further.
Like sometimes the situation arises in a country like developing countries and the developed worlds. So basically the theory which has been developed, it might be developed for the developed worlds and
Okay.
for the developing countries.
So one answer is that it is true depending on context. It may be true in one place and not in another. This is an important part of the answer, but there is another part that is also important. That is there somebody who remembers this from the last lecture? We are just reviewing the concepts from the last lecture.
Simplifying conception are also important.
No, it's not. The point that I tried to make, which is that a theory, whether or not it's true or false, it represents how people understood their experience. So, even if it is wrong, people shape the response according to their understanding. So, even a wrong theory will be a guide to action. For example, if people think that increasing gold supplies is going to bring prosperity, then they will take policies which will increase the gold supply, even though it may not be the right thing to do. So, if there is a theory which says that every nation should have free trade, then people will try to act according to this. And it may be actually harmful to them, but if you want to understand what people were doing, you will have to understand that theory. So, true and false is not necessarily relevant, because America had the theory that if it would invade Iraq and it would capture it, then it would get control of the oil and it would be able to benefit greatly. It was on the basis of such a theory and assumption and that they attacked. Now, they didn't succeed, so their theory was wrong, but this theory was still an important guide to their action, and many such examples. Most theories are in fact false, but they still drive human action. So if we want to understand what is going on in the world, we have to understand all of those false theories as well, because those theories are, experience by itself doesn't tell you anything. I tried something and I failed. Now what should I learn from this experience? You have to have a theory to interpret that experience. Your theory can be that, well, if you fail once, then you should try another time and try again until you succeed. Or your theory can be, if you try, my experience is that I failed, it means that I cannot do it, and so I should just quit. The experience is compatible with both kinds of theories, but the theory will decide what will you do next. So you have to understand the theory in order to understand history. Now, it happens that most of the time when the people are trying to analyze the historical experience, they are wrong. They cannot, it's very recent, fresh, new things are happening and they cannot understand it. So they make a theory which is wrong. So most of the theories are wrong, but they are nonetheless, we have to understand those theories because they will determine how people react to the historical experience. So now, so once you understand that theories are not true or false, and that's not the way to judge them, then there is the question: do theories reflect power? So, for example, actually Karl Marx said that people believe in the theories which are in their interest to believe. So, for example, if you ask the landlords, the large landlords, that should there be land reforms, so they will say no, not because it is in our personal interest, because they will say that for the nation, this is good because the small landholdings are inefficient, and they will, if we have big lands, then we can produce more efficiently at lower cost and so on. And they will believe this sincerely. It's not that this is a well-known bias that people believe, so they will not think that we are being selfish, and they will. If you ask the small landholder, he will say, yes, of course there should be land reforms, and that is the good thing for the country. They will also not say that there should be land reform because it will help me. So this is how people are. People often believe in. Theories which come to dominate often reflect power. So those who are powerful have a theory about the world, and this theory gets to be believed. So, for example, neoclassical economics is a theory which is very favorable to the wealthy. But the theory itself is propagated as a neutral and scientific theory. So, very often theories do reflect power, but not always. So this world is very complicated. You can find examples, but you can find many examples where theories reflect the interests of power. So it is often the case that a large number of people are fooled into doing things which are against their self-interest. So this creates an opportunity for us in the sense that if you explain something to someone which is in their interest, they are more likely to believe you. So, for example, if I explain these things, and I've seen it done in US University, since this system is of great benefit to the USA, it will be very much more difficult for me to explain why those theories are wrong, because those theories are very helpful to them to dominate the world. So they would rather not believe that they are false. But here, these theories are used to oppress you and to keep you down, so you are more willing and eager to listen to the possibility that they might be false, and other theories which can help us might be true. So people respond to their interests. So that's why truth is a powerful weapon, because actually the way the world works, a very small minority of very wealthy people have dominated. They have control of the newspapers, they have control of the media, they have spread theories which are very much in their favor and very much against the interest of the majority. So I have given one example here, and there are many other examples, that in the Iraq war, which was very much against the interest of the American public, because in American public, social services were being cut, healthcare is not available to everybody, infrastructure was decaying, just like in Pakistan. In the USA, infrastructure was decaying, but the government didn't have enough money to spend on that, but they had money to spend trillions of dollars on this fake war, in which the public was scared into believing that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. and that Al-Qaeda was also in Iraq. Neither of these was true. So, the public was fooled into doing things which was against their own interest. But if you somebody, so there's just one example. There are many such examples. Now, who can explain what is the great transformation that we talked about last lecture? This is an event in European history which is of extreme importance to understand. Yes? Kya hua? Industrialization was actually one of the causes of the great transformation, but it is not.
So when societies changed from paternalistic to individual.
Well, you see, now you are expressing it as a law. This is not the case. It's just something which happened in Europe. It's not when societies do this. It's what happened in Europe.
So battles among the religious groups.
Kya ho gaya?
Battles among the religious groups, and then they leave the religion and they follow science.
This was one part of the great transformation, although it was not really. Not really.
Science is basically taken as input.
Yeah, this was one part of the great transformation. But actually, the main, if somebody can tell me what the core concept of the great transformation is, I will give her a chocolate. Or him. Mass production was one of the causes of the great transformation, yes.
Movement from manual labor to machines.
That was one of the causes of great transformation, but it was not the great transformation.
Imperialism to capitalism.
No, that's not true. Basically, in the great transformation, the main thing that happened was that the market became central to the society. Prior to the great transformation, self-sufficiency was the rule. When you have all over the world, small self-sufficient communities, then markets are not important. Because the way by which people get, just like within a family, children don't buy food, there is no market inside a family. So in rural neighborhoods, there is a market, but it is not the main element by which people, and if the market was closed down, nobody would notice the difference. So markets are used to trade secondary, not basic needs. Everybody survives, and people grow their own food, and they provide food to the people who don't have them on the basis of social norms, not because they can buy the food. So everybody gets fed, but it's not on the basis of the market. Market is used for luxury goods or for unusual things or for. So basically, the transformation of society from self-sufficient economies, which Karl Polanyi said as paternalistic and regulatory. These are two important terms. Paternalistic means that the society looks out after its members. If somebody is not getting something, then the other people provide for that. So that's paternalistic, means father-like. You take care of everybody in the society. And regulatory means that the market exists, but it is regulated. If somebody says, okay, I want to buy your liver, people say, no, that's not permitted. It's not a good thing. So the markets are regulated. You can use markets, but they have their limits. You cannot exceed. So, in the Great Transformation, the market became central. So then everything is on sale. There are no restrictions on the market. If you try to bind the market, you can't do this, you can't do that, that will create problems. And so then, instead of paternalistic, we have ruthless markets, in the sense that you have cutthroat competition. I will cut your throat if you're not looking, and you will cut mine if I'm not looking. So this is, and this is supposed to be good, perfect competition. That's what makes the firms efficient. So this was the Great Transformation. In this, it was not just economic. The economics changed, the politics changed, the social structure of society changed, everything changed. Okay, so alright, so what I'm going to do next is to look at another building block of this set of arguments that we are looking at, to try to understand so we are going to go through this. Now this lecture is mainly about the quantity theory of money. You have been told about, and you have basically more or less, people believe in the quantity theory of money. This is the most, in fact, I'm in the process of writing a paper. The quantity theory of money says that money is a veil. What does that mean? Who can tell me? Yes. And why? Because?
Because markets are driven by market forces, demand and supply. That's why money has nothing to do with that.
Because economic agents
It does not affect physical activity.
How is that?
It does not generate physical activity.
That's not true.
Sir, because the economic agents know about real and nominal variable, they can differentiate between them. So they decide on real variables, for example, balances.
This is coming closer to the truth. Basically, I have indicated here that, see, if you double the money, you just double the prices, and then nothing real changes. And if you halve the money, then the prices will become half, and then again everything is exactly the same as before. So, the amount of money in the economy makes no difference, right? That's what the argument is. Very simple. Double the money, double the price. Everything else is exactly the same. So, now, actually what I want to argue is that the quantity theory is a veil over money. Money is all important. So, if you think that money is unimportant, then you can't understand anything about the economy. And a theory which says that money is not important will just mean that you can struggle all your life and you will never understand what's happening in an economy. So quantity theory is completely wrong. One of the implicit assumptions, so I'm saying that there are 5 mistakes. The first mistake is that money is a veil. This is not true. Money is not a veil. Money is the main thing. So quantity theory is a veil, in the sense that quantity theory hides the real importance of money. So, is it true that, so the second thing is that if we double the money, the prices will double. Is this true? Yes, not necessarily. Okay, very good. Why not?
Sir, if we increase the supply, it goes into limited hands, it won't go into the market. So if it is evenly distributed in the market, then it will double the prices.
Yes, if everybody gets exactly the same amount of money. Suppose I say that, okay, from now on you go to the bank and you have 1 rupee, I will stamp 2 rupees on it. If you have 100, I will stamp 200. Then nothing will happen actually. This is true. So this is the so-called thought experiment that they ask you to do when you in your classes. This is how they teach you the quantity theory. You think about it, yeah, of course, makes sense. If I just say that my rupee is now 100 yen, we will rename it. So it now 100, but nothing is actually changed and nothing will change. So this is how they teach. But this is not what actually happens. Now, in fact, you already know a theory of, you already know the Keynesian theory. And in the Keynesian theory, money can have a real effect. How?
Sir, because money is not only the medium of exchange property, it also has sort of value.
No. If somebody can tell me, I will give him or her a chocolate. How in the Keynesian theory, money has real effects. Both on both sides. If you increase it, it has some effect. If you decrease it, it has some effect. Who can tell me? Both. I need two answers for the chocolate. Okay, raise your hand. Who can answer this question? Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
For the first time, it has been differentiated that money is a rule to be saved, or it has been considered as an asset. So in that sense, we can consider it that yes, money matters, or money has effect on real value.
What did Keynes say? Keynes said something very important.
Money has real effects in short run.
Because of the economic agents.
Money impacts rate of interest and which is secondary demand.
Economic agents decide on the nominal.
Prices are
sticky. It means that money cannot act in the way that it is supposed to according to the quantity theory. That is one of the ideas, yes, but how does it act? There are two things which happen in real economy according to Keynes. If money is raised, it has a real effect. If money is lowered, it also has a real effect. Yes. Who can answer?
Wage and prices, wage and interest rate are not flexible, they are rigid.
Okay, so what will happen if they are rigid? What happens when we decrease money in a Keynesian economy? Suppose that prices are rigid and we reduce the supply of money. What will happen?
Price decrease and real wage also decrease.
No, you are saying that prices are rigid. Actually, Keynes did not assume rigid price, but it makes it easy to understand what Keynes was saying if we assume that the prices are rigid. Expectations are not relevant to this, although they matter in understanding money.
Sir, actually when money supply increases, so it affects the nominal wages. So when money supply increases, the nominal wages increases, and what is that the wages are increasing, so they increase
First, let's do just one thing at a time. There are two effects that I want to get, which Keynes explained, and which anybody who knows Keynesian theory should know. Let us just suppose, for simplicity, that prices and wages are fixed, and the economy is in full employment equilibrium, and now the money supply goes down to half. So we remove take everybody's pockets, and the amount of money, half of the money is taken away and burnt. Now the money supply has gone down by half. According to the quantity theory, the prices should all go down by half, wages should all go down by half. But suppose that prices and wages are fixed, then what will happen? No flexibility. No flexibility, that's what we are assuming. But what will happen to the economy? Yes, unemployment will happen. Why?
Because of the lower
real wages up, so the firms will demand less labor.
Real wages are too high relative to equilibrium, so the demand for labor will go down. But that's not all. Actually, that's a consequence. What happens first is Aggregate demand goes down. Why does aggregate demand go down? The real prices are too high. So if aggregate demand goes down, then that means that people don't produce goods. So people are not asking for goods. You were producing just now when the money was there. Everybody was producing at full employment. Everybody and things were being sold. But now the things that were being sold cannot be sold anymore because the demand is not there. Because suddenly the prices have doubled. The people who were buying your goods are no longer able to afford to buy them because they have only half the money. So you start producing, you notice, nobody is buying. So then you cut down on production. And you reduce the production and the production goes down. And when you cut down on production, you lay off the laborers. If you have read, how many people have read House of Debt by Mian Sufi? Have not read it? You should be reading that. The first chapter of that book starts by some small town in America in which they were producing these trailers, the vacation homes. We don't have them here in Pakistan. The big cars with beds and everything. You can actually, it's a small house and you can travel in it. So suddenly the company announced that we are going to fire about half of the workers, and so people were surprised. Everything was running smoothly. And why? Well, they said, demand has gone down. Why did the demand go down? Well, because after the global financial crisis, a lot of people lost a lot of money. And so the people who would have ordinarily wanted to buy no longer had the money to buy. So the aggregate demand went down, and then the people got fired and they were unemployed. And this is, when the aggregate demand goes down, then people stop producing. When people stop producing, then they don't need as much capacity. They lay off all the factors of production. One of the factors of production is labor. So there's unemployment. So what would happen according to the economic theory is that gradually the prices, when people see that their goods are not selling, then they will lower the prices. And when they lower the prices, then demand will pick up, and ultimately you will reach a new equilibrium. But if the prices are fixed, then this cannot happen. Of course, so this is an easy way to understand what Keynes was saying, but this is not what Keynes actually said. So, one of the things, part one of the thing that I'm trying to explain, money has real effects according to Keynes if the prices are fixed. Now, actually, Keynes had a second explanation. Suppose that prices also go down and wages also go down. Then the real wage remains the same. So, if the real wage remains the same, and the aggregate demand has gone down, then unemployment will result. So Keynes had several arguments that if the money supply is not enough for the needs, basically you should think of it intuitively. There is some money, there is some prices, all the businesses are working, people are hiring laborers, and everybody needs money to get all of the things done. This is actually one of the crucial elements of a market economy. This is part of the great transformation. Now, if we did not have a market economy, money would not have such a central role, and things would be entirely different. But anyway, in a market, everybody needs money to do everything. So, suddenly, suppose that the amount of money goes down, then businesses will close because they don't have enough money to buy things, they are not getting enough money, people don't have money to pay for their products, they don't have money to pay their laborers, they don't have money to purchase their inputs. So all of the business will be adversely affected. There will be unemployment of everything. I mean, the factories will close down and people will not have jobs. Why? Because there's not enough money is like the blood which is circulating. If there's not enough money, then nothing functions. So now, according to the classical economists, this problem would correct itself. That is what it means to say that the market is self-regulating. If it is a problem, you know about this theory. You have the supply and demand equilibrium, and if it's out of equilibrium, it will move towards equilibrium. Now, one of the things that Keynes said was that this equilibrium will not fix itself. And that's not something. I mean, everybody observed this. This was the problem that the Great Depression created. That an economy was functioning fully well, everybody was employed, production, everything was going fine, and then suddenly everything collapsed, and then it stayed that way until World War II, basically, more than about 20 years. So it was realized that what economic theory says is not what's happening. Keynes said that maybe our theory describes how we would like the economy to behave, but it is not actually how it behaves. So we have to study how actually it behaves rather than what our theory says. So this is one part. We are looking at the mistakes of the quantity theory. So according to the quantity theory, you halve the money, wages will halve, prices will halve, and everything will be fine. But according to Keynesian theory, this is not true. If you halve the money, then there will be unemployment. Now, in classical theory also, this is acceptable. Classical theory also says that money can have a short-term impact. That in the short run, if you suddenly halve the money, prices will not adjust immediately. For a little while there will be unemployment, but the economy is self-regulating. It will fix it itself. The people will see that there is too much supply, so they will reduce the prices. Now, and once the prices are reduced, then the wages are reduced. When you reduce the prices, you also have to reduce the wages because you cannot make profits. I mean, if you are paying too much to the factors of production, then you will be making a loss when you sell it low. So when you lower the price of your product, you also lower the wages and everything. And eventually, according to classical theory, people will get back to full employment equilibrium. But this was not observed to happen in the Great Depression. So Keynes came up with a theory to explain why it does not happen. Okay, so that explanation is a little bit complex and we went over it last time. But, okay, so now consider the opposite question. Tell me how it can be that if we increase the money, this will not affect prices and it will have a real effect in the economy. Again, Keynes told us the answer.
Segregated demand goes up.
How is that? If the money goes, suppose we have an economy and we double the money,
So when we have more money,
what will happen?
Prices of investment. Prices are low. Therefore, investment.
Well, you see, there you go. First of all, according to the quantity theory, if double the money, all the prices will double and the wages will double. But Keynes tells us that may be true, but it may not be true. So I want you to tell me, using Keynesian theory, a situation where you can double the money, but the prices and the wages will not change.
In the short run,
Not even the short run, even in the long run, according to the Keynesian theory.
Before the full employment,
Very good. What?
before the full employment, if we increase
money supply.
Exactly.
Immediate demand will increase and employment output and real variable are increase.
Exactly.
But before the full employment, if we increase the money supply, it will just increase inflation. Real variable are also.
Exactly. So Keynes tells you a situation. Suppose you are below full employment. You have a situation where, okay, you can get a chocolate for this one. You can come up and get it. Because you answered the question. This is what Keynes tells us. That suppose you are in a situation where there is excess capacity in the economy. Factories are closed, labor people are out of work, and you have a certain supply of money, and you have prices and you have wages. Now you double the money supply. Now people who have the money, the effective demand, they are going to say, okay, I have money, I want to buy this, but there is not enough shoes in the store, so they say, oh, there's demand for this, so you open up the factory, hire some people. So this money will be used to add to the production, and prices will not go up because there is unused capacity in the economy. The idea that when you double the prices, what happens, that you have been told this story in your classes, the people go and they have double money and they go and ask, but there's only that the goods are not changed. The amount, the supply is fixed because your economy is supplying at full employment. It's at maximum capacity. It cannot produce more because all of the labor is already employed. So now when the money goes and say we want more shoes, there is no way to produce more shoes. So what will happen is that the price will go up. That's the only way to get to equilibrium. But if you are at below capacity, if you are not at full employment equilibrium, then price increase will not increase into the excuse me?
Sir, money supply increase will not increase price.
Will not increase prices. Instead, what will happen is that it will increase employment, it will increase production, it will increase the aggregate demand, and it will increase the aggregate supply. So it will have a very beneficial effect. Right now, I am on the board which decides the monetary policy for Pakistan. Just a few weeks ago we went in. These things are not well understood. So the issue is, should we increase the money supply in Pakistan? It's widely believed that if we do, it will cause inflation. But it depends. I mean, we have a lot of people who are out of work, unemployed, huge. And a lot of things that need to be done. We want to build roads, we want to do this, that and the other. We want to build dams, huge amount of work. But work is not being done, people are unemployed. So, very likely, if we increase the money supply, it will not happen. But actually, that's another thing. That it's not necessarily true that if we increase the money supply, it will have inflationary effect. It could just cause greater employment and greater production and greater. So this is very important. It makes a difference. Now, I'm not saying that it will necessarily have to happen because that's related to the third point.
The money supply increases and it also devalue currency.
This is an important thing. Actually, this is a very complicated thing which I will try to discuss later. You see, the money supply has two sets of effects. One is internal. So currently we are thinking about a closed economy, not an open economy. So in a closed economy, everything is going on. There is no foreign trade. Now when you have foreign trade, then when you increase the money supply or decrease the money supply, it has two effects. There is the domestic effect on the local production. It also has an effect on your demand for exports and your imports. And those two are separate things. And unfortunately, money supply has to balance both of those effects. And that's a difficult thing to do. Currently, just for the sake of understanding, we are thinking only of a closed economy. So I'm not worried about what happens to the exchange rate, etc., and what happens to exports and imports. Although it is very important to think about those things in an open economy. But I want to make life simple at first. So for the moment, we are not worried about foreign trade. But it does matter, it makes a big difference. So now the third point, the third mistake which quantity theory makes, which you have been brainwashed into believing, is that the distribution of money, they say, okay, take the money and double it. But it depends on who is going to get that extra money and what he will do with it. That will determine the effect. So if somebody gets the money and he puts it in the bank and doesn't do anything, then doubling the money will have no effect. If somebody gets the money and he invests it, exactly, then it can increase the productive capacity of the economy. If somebody gets the money and he starts buying land with it, what will happen? The land price will increase. If somebody gets money and he starts buying stocks with it, the stock market prices will increase. So, depending on who has the money and what they do with it, so this idea that all prices will increase proportionately is not true. And we can show historically that this is not true. So the distribution of money is all important. But the quantity theory says that distribution doesn't make any difference. Double the money, double the prices, it doesn't matter who gets the extra money. Because this is a common mistake and there is a reason for that. I mean, if you study your advanced macroeconomics, then you have the DSGE model, the Dynamic Stochastic General Equilibrium model. In this model, there is only one consumer, one person, a representative agent. So, if the money is doubled, then if there's only one person in the economy and doubles the money, then quantity theory will be true because it's just like it's supposed to happen that if I double the money of everybody in exactly the same proportion, then nothing will happen. But if there are two people in the economy, one of them is a miser and he just takes the money and stores it in his bank, nothing will happen. If the other one is an investor and a speculator and he starts buying up all the land, the prices of land will double, but the other prices will not. So there will be a differential effect. If you take the same money and give it, if you think of back to this the first chapter of Mian Sufi, these were the people who used to buy recreational vehicles, stopped buying them. Now there was $1 trillion bailout that happened after the global financial crisis. Trillions of dollars were distributed. But who did they go to? They went to the bankers. The bankers don't buy recreational vehicles. If the same $1 trillion had been given to those people who were buying the vehicles, then the aggregate demand, the factory would not have closed. So, when it was given to the bankers, they started purchasing stocks. So, after that, the stock prices have been going up. But the demand for the cars has not been going up, and the demand for many other things has not. So, again, the third mistake of the quantity theory is that the distribution does not matter, but actually the distribution matters. And so if you want to tell what happens when the quantity theory, when the quantity of money doubles, you can't answer that question, because you have to ask, who did the money go to? And what did they do with it? So now there is this specie flow mechanism of Hume. Again, this is part of. So now this is according to the international trade. So, if suppose that this has to do with the gold standard. So let's go back to the gold standard for the moment, because that's how actually Hume was the one who formulated the quantity theory, and he said that this is what will happen. People were worried. This specie flow is exactly in opposition to the mercantilists. The mercantilists said that in order to have our economy function well, we should have more and more gold what we should do is to export more and get the gold, and import less so as to save our gold. It's as I said, the mercantilist view is adapted to the PRE, where trade is only in luxuries. So if there are luxuries, you are selling and making money, that's good. It makes intuitive sense, and you should not import too many luxuries. That's not useful for you. It's not good for you. But now Hume said that this mercantilist position is not true. And what he said was that suppose that we start buying a lot of goods from abroad, gold will go out. So what will happen? Well, when the gold goes out of my economy, my money supply shrinks. So now what does the quantity theory says will happen? My prices will also go down. So when my prices go down, the goods of my country become cheaper. So other people will start buying, and the gold that has gone out will cause an increase in the money supply outside, and it will cause an increase in the prices outside. So other goods will become more expensive, so we will buy less of them. So exports will go down, and so the equilibrium will be restored. So this is the so-called specie flow mechanism of Hume. And basically what Hume was arguing is that the mercantilists are wrong. You don't need to worry about the money supply, because it will take care of itself, the gold. So don't worry about gold. Now, one thing that is important to understand is that both theories are right. That the mercantilist theory is right when it comes to a society which is self-sufficient and the trade is only in luxuries. But when we moved to a market economy, then in a market economy, trade started taking place in necessities. People were growing food and exporting it. So, if the food supply is you are exporting or importing, then if there is some problem with the trade, then you will be hungry. This is not a self-sufficient economy anymore. So now, any restrictions of trade are harmful. And so the theory had to change to accommodate the new type of economy. Now, the specie flow mechanism of Hume does not work as advertised. It doesn't work. What actually happened in economies? Basically, economies were on gold standard in late 19th century, and there was a lot of trade. So, what do you think would happen in reality as opposed to in the dream of Hume? There was lots of trade. England was exporting things and importing things, and other countries were also doing the same. So, according to Hume, it's all going to balance out, but actually this is not what was happening. What did happen, which caused basically abandoning of the gold standard, it was one of the reasons for the World War also, the unequal balance of power. What will happen when, suppose that gold flows out of a country, in the sense that people start buying a lot of exports, as used to happen, when you start doing this theory of comparative advantage is a weapon. It's an ideological weapon. It's an idea which is used to make countries do what is not in their own interest. So now we were told in India and Pakistan that our comparative advantage is in growing raw materials, and if somebody built a factory, the British would come and destroy the factory. When the cotton textile producers of India developed some machines which were very efficient at producing a certain type of cloth which was in great demand in England. Then people came and burned those machines. Then they learned how to build these things, do how this with their hands. So they came in and cut off the thumbs of all the cotton experts. So that was to enforce the theory of comparative advantage, since our comparative advantage was not in producing textiles. So they were really trying to help us. You see, we were doing something foolish like producing advanced clothes. So because we were black and very stupid, so we didn't understand our own self-interest. So they came and cut off the thumb so that we would understand better. So that now we would only produce the yarn, and we would produce the cotton, and then it would go to England, where they would spin it into cloth and thread, and they would send it back to us so that we could wear advanced English clothing. Gandhi protested against this, and he said that basically the Khadar movement, that he said we will only, because they had destroyed our industry, our cloth was the finest in the world. I mean, at the time that the English invaded, their industry was far behind India in terms of production of textiles. And so what they did, they banned the import of Indian textiles, and they destroyed our industry, and they copied a lot of technology from the Indian producers. And so we were forced to import things. Now, suppose that there is an imbalance in an economy, that the amount of money, that since the wheat that you are exporting is controlled at their prices and is sold cheaply, and the cloth that they are exporting is sold very expensively. So suppose that you have a balance of payments deficit, that is, you are exporting gold. Then what will happen? According to the specie flow mechanism, we know what will happen. But what will really happen? So first of all, just review what will happen according to the specie flow mechanism. So gold is flowing out. We are buying a lot of manufactured goods from America and England for very expensively. They sell us this little CD which is worth 60 rupees for 6,000 rupees, and many other things like that. And they are buying our wheat cheaply. So we are losing a lot of gold in the. So what will happen according to the specie flow mechanism? Huh? Our prices will go down, exactly. Exactly. Yes. Yes. But what actually happens?
Exchange rate deficit, local currency.
Now, this is you might be right, but we are thinking of gold standard. So in gold standard, there is no exchange rate; it's fixed because.
Sir, gold outflow will be more than gold in.
Gold outflow will occur. Yes, exactly. Net gold will go out of the country. So what will happen? If the gold goes down from our domestic, then prices will not rise. The prices will go down, but we've already learned from the Keynesian theory what will happen. What will happen? Yeah, that's right. This is very important. Now, what will happen according to Keynesian theory, not according to quantity theory, is that if the gold flows out, we have less money, we cannot carry out our business as before, factories will shut down, there will be unemployment, and so on and so forth. And that's what happened. It was happening all over the world. The countries which had high exports were producing, they had booming economies, their employment was full, their capacity was full, and the countries which were importing, like we have balance of payments deficit. So our domestic aggregate demand is low because there is this demand, but it is being spent on financing the foreigners. If actually we created a barrier to trade, we stopped this trade, and we say, no, you have to go and buy from the domestic market only, you cannot buy. So we have, for example, if we create a tariff barrier, we say that, okay, you cannot buy air conditioners from China. What will happen? People will buy domestic air conditioners. So what will happen to our air conditioning industry? It will survive as opposed to being destroyed. So the specie-fellow mechanism is not right. It doesn't happen like that. If gold flows out, money supply goes down, you have unemployment, you have low aggregate demand, and lots of problems happen. So similarly, if you have high exports, then generally speaking, this will bring benefits to the economy. In potentially, we're thinking in terms of Keynesian theory, that if you have too many exports, this could cause inflation. However, this is also not what happens. It could cause inflation if the money comes in and is given to everybody and everybody spends. But actually, Japan ran an export surplus for a huge export surplus for a long time without actually having any inflation. Why? Well, they would take the exports and they would earn the dollars, and the central bank would store it as a safety measure. So they acquired huge balances of dollars, but there was no inflation because that money was just being stored. It was not being used, so it didn't create the demand that is necessary for the inflation. So again, we have the problem that the specie flow mechanism doesn't work as it is supposed to, and similarly, the fifth point. So this is again. So 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all 4 mistakes which are made by the quantity theory. The fifth mistake is the self-regulation. This is not directly stated in the quantity theory, but it is assumed. The specie flow is a self-regulation of the economy. Also, the quantity theory itself is self-regulation, that if money goes up, the economy will automatically fix the problem. That is the thing, that the economy will fix the problem. It's understood that if money is doubled, that will cause an increase in the demand, and what will that do? That will cause an increase in the prices, and that will fix the problem. So, economy itself is something which fixes problems. So, that's why we don't need to interfere in the economy. That's the philosophy of laissez-faire. Let things be as they are, and everything will automatically work in the best way. So this philosophy is completely wrong, and it leads to a wrong understanding of how markets work. Actually, markets do not fix themselves. The example that Atif Mia and Sufi start out with is that there is this small town in which Everybody was working, everybody was happy. Everybody was producing these recreational vehicles, which are Winnebago is the name of the company, which is large trailers which have. And suddenly, aggregate demand collapsed and people were out of work. And there was huge unemployment and production went down. So, then he went back a few years later to see what has happened. So, according to the theory, all of those unemployment people should have found jobs. Maybe they should have moved away to places where there are jobs. But he found that everybody was pretty much in the same place. There was not much movement. The wages had not changed, and one would expect that since the demand has gone down, so the prices and the wages will go down, but they did not. So, there was no self-regulation. The unemployment that was created remained there, didn't fix itself as it's supposed to. So, these are all big problems, and these are the problems which prevent you from understanding what's really going on in the world. Now, it is of very great importance for you to understand what is really going on in the world, because, as I just told you, we are making monetary policy on the basis of false theories. If really it is true, and it is really true, that if we were to double the money supply in Pakistan, what would happen is that roads will start getting built, people will start getting jobs, unemployment would be wonderful, it's very easy. But actually it's not so easy. It's not that if the state bank prints double the amount of money, then suddenly problems will solve. No, as I have said, the distribution matters. It has to double, but then it shouldn't go into the hands of the Sates or the people who will export it to Switzerland or people who will put it in the stock market. It has to go to those people who are building the roads, and it has to go to the people who are... If it can be done, then... but it shows that, you see, if we can do that, the problem is not as difficult as it seems. And at the moment, the policymakers saying, oh, we have to get foreign investment and we have to get technology and this, that and the other in order to make progress. But if it's just a question of printing money and investing it in the right projects, that's very easy to do. We can just print money. So one of the things the government says all the time, that we don't have the budget to do this, we don't have the budget to feed the poor, we don't have the budget to provide social services, we can't build schools, we can't provide education, we can't provide health services because we don't have the money. But the government can print as much money as it wants to. Now, the issue is, they say that, well, if we start printing money, inflation will happen. Why? Because the quantity theory. But the quantity theory is false. It can happen. If they print money, then inflation can happen. But if they print money wisely and use it wisely, no inflation can happen. And we can have good health services for everybody and education for everybody. So these things are very important that I am trying to teach you. And yes, yes. I've said that. You are right.
Sir, but you're talking about the infrastructure, the roads and the buildings, whereas Pakistan is exporting all the material, the infrastructure is exported from other countries. If the money currency devalues, so then its our imports will get expensive, whereas at the same time our exports will also rise, and the prices will also rise. So, sir, in the case of Pakistan, it can't be applied in the case of China or other countries, but in the case of Pakistan, which IMF is trying to impose on Pakistan to devalue its money. So it's not applicable in Pakistan, so in case of money supply, if you call, sir.
I didn't say that. First of all, you are right in that I'm still thinking of a closed economy. I have not considered the issues of imports and exports. If there is, like, we have our own concrete factory, so if we invest the money in sectors which are more or less self-sufficient, then this problem that you are mentioning will not happen. If we try to produce things which require a lot of imported material, then this will run into certain types of problems which I have not yet discussed.
We are coming from energy crisis, and whereas fuel is imported from other countries. So whichever sector we're talking about, so the fuel, the power is the main cause of the production.
There are many domestic sources of power. There is sunlight, there is wind,
sunlight and wind, you also need to import the technology from other countries.
The wind technology is very easy. Yes, it's a one-time cost, but it's not. Okay, so suppose we spend $1 billion to import the technology. That's a one-time. South Korea, I think it was Korea. They decided what should we do, and they said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to build a semiconductor industry. This is a very advanced industry, and they had nothing, zero. So the government put huge investment, and now they are one of the leading producers of semiconductors, and they have the cheapest computers because semiconductors are the basic building unit. So from zero, they created a semiconductor industry completely against the whole idea of economic theory, because they didn't have anything, so they didn't have competitive advantage in producing semiconductors. But the point is that competitive advantage is not something you are born with. If you try to do something, you can learn. And so, if we try to solve problems for energy, there are many solutions actually. Even now, Iran would be very happy to trade with us and provide us with all the energy that we need in return for vegetables which they don't have. But the Uncle Sam doesn't want that. So, and our leaders are scared of Uncle Sam, so they don't. They are listening to Uncle Sam. So, these things are, all the problems have solutions, but you are quite right, things are not as simple as I am saying, and I've told you that I cannot explain all of the parts, but what I am saying is that to understand this does not require the ability to solve differential equations. It requires the ability to understand human beings, politics, power interests, and these things everybody can understand. So, it's not rocket science that and so you can understand, but you have to work to understand there is a lot more than I am telling you right now, and but I am telling you that it's possible for you to understand it. It's not difficult. So, but you have to make the effort. Right now, I have so many papers that I can write, but I don't have the time to do so, because you see, once you understand what is going on, you have been, basically there is the rhetoric of economics. You have been fooled into thinking that you cannot understand economics because you are retarded, you're from backwards country, you have less brains than white people. So, you don't even make the effort. And actually what's happening is that the theories you are being taught are completely wrong, and the McCloskey, I think, wrote a book called The Rhetoric of Economics. Now, rhetoric is actually a way of persuading other people that you are right, without necessarily having a lot of substance. So basically he writes that, Samuelson wrote a book called The Foundations of Economics, which is very heavily mathematical. And what he wrote, McCloskey, was that all of the points in the book can be made very simply. So in terms of the economics, there is no content to this book. But the whole point was to show off that I can do a lot of heavy mathematics and to basically impress people. And after that, actually, the whole profession started doing that. Samuelson set the standard. So, even if something can be explained very simply, you have to write equations and models, and you know that because you have to write your thesis, and understand that you have to do differentiation and run regression model in order to have a thesis, even though you have no idea what these things are or how they will help. I mean, you have to apply your common sense. Suppose we want to know that is foreign direct investment good for Pakistan? So, use your brains. I mean, you have switch them off. How do you find out? Well, we should go and look at who is doing the investing, what are they investing in. No, what you will do, you will go to the data and you will say, okay, I'll take 10 points of data of FDI and 10 points of data of GNP and put this in the computer and 0.37. Significant. It means that FDI is good for Pakistan. What nonsense. What stupidity. Use your brains. So, actually I have gone through these points, but I said there are 5 myths, and then I made slides to show about each of the myths. So, myth number 1, money is a whale. No, it's not true. Money is not a whale. If money is short, you will have unemployment. If money is larger than what you need, it can lead to inflation, but may not. In fact, there is a very important article by Friedman, a person I hate because he's very wrong, politics and very wrong. But one of his ideas is that, look, what is the optimal quantity of money? How much money should we have in Pakistan? There should be some optimal. So basically he says, money is free, in the sense that you can print as much as you like. So the optimal quantity should be such that it is very large. However much is needed for the economy, that's how much you should produce. So do we have enough money? There should be no scarcity of money. It should not be that somebody needs money but he cannot get it. If money is scarce, then it will generate rents. Interest is the rent on money. So actually, one very important thing is that money is freely producible, so it should not have any rents. So interest should be 0. If there is interest, that means that money is in scarce, is short supply, and so there are 2 implications. That means that people who have money can earn money from that. No, money should be freely available so that people cannot earn money on money. And this is actually what Keynes said. Keynes said that we should lower the interest rates, and this will lead to the destruction of the rentier class. This is again something which has been hidden in economic theory and leads to deception and fraud. The old economists, like Keynes, said that there are 2 types of production. There is, you take money and you buy land with it. Land is sterile, or you buy a house with it. So then you rent it out. Well, house actually provides services, but you earn money just because of your ownership of land. You are not actually providing any service to society. So just like that, the same thing is true about stock market as well. So people, he said, and lots of classical economists said, that this is of no benefit to society, that people should not earn money unless they provide a service. So just the owning of money is not a service to society. Being wealthy is not a service to society. But when money is in short supply, then these people can take advantage of the scarcity of money. So I was talking about how shortfall can lead to unemployment. and how actually money should be produced generously, more than is currently. I mean, it should not be kept in shortfall. Now, according to the standard quantity theory, if you have a shortfall in quantity, then this will fix itself and prices will be reduced. But this is not true. Shortfall in quantity leads to unemployment, and this persists for a long time. It doesn't change automatically. And in fact, one more thing that is important to add, I said that the Keynesian theory is not tied to fixity of prices. When the money falls, then price deflation can occur, but it can fail to solve the problem. You see, what is needed is that the real wage should fall in order for there to be an increase in output. If the real wage falls, then the production will increase. But suppose there is general deflation, the prices fall, the wages fall, then the price-wage ratio will remain the same, real wage will remain high at the disequilibrium level. So again, you will not have a solution to the problem. There was actually, what happened in the Great Depression was something which was called the debt deflation cycle. And this is actually one of the things of which Mia and Sufi also point out, and also was pointed out by Fisher. You see, after the Great Depression occurred, a lot of economists sat there with their heads, hands on their heads, and saying, everything we said was wrong, and they started thinking, what was right, and they came up with a lot of ideas which are very important and which are very relevant today. But these ideas were forgotten because they were contrary to the interest of the wealthy. So one of these important ideas that was forgotten and again happened, there is a proverb which says that people who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So if actually for about 50 years people followed the lessons of history, Keynesian economics, and then they forgot, and then everything went back to pre-Keynesian economics, and then the Great Depression, basically almost the same way as it happened before, happened again. This is what you need to learn. I mean, when I say same way, it's not really true. Many things were different. There was a mortgage crisis. Actually, there was also a mortgage crisis at that time also. But you don't know. You never studied history, so you have to know what are the patterns. Once you learn these patterns, then you can understand. Economics is a very powerful subject. There's a lot of things to learn, but you're being fed some words I don't want to use. So you're being fed garbage, and therefore you cannot understand economics. Now you have to wake up and start understanding. It's very easy to do for human beings. Human beings have the capability to understand these things. So what I'm saying here is that the debt deflation cycle, Irving Fisher said, what happened, you see, before the Great Depression was that the stock market was booming. So people everybody wanted to buy stocks. And actually this was encouraged by the people who were the wealthy. And so you buy stock today and tomorrow the price doubles. It's very tempting. Everybody wants to double their money. So people were, not only were they putting the money they had, but they were borrowing money to put into the stock market. And the banks were say, okay, you can come and borrow. So everybody would borrow money. And actually it's kind of a secured loan. You borrow money and you buy stocks. Then the value of the stock is a collateral for the loan. So in principle, you can always pay it back because the stock will be there. And as long as the stocks are increasing, there is no harm. Same thing happened with the mortgages in the great global financial crisis. So, when the stock market crashed, then people had huge amounts of debt. They had to pay back money which they had borrowed and gambled with and lost. And this was huge. I mean, lots of people had done it. But now, suppose that the money supply contracts, as it did, the money supply contracted by about 30%. So what will happen? The price will go down and the wages will go down. Now, those people who are in debt, they are earning wages and they are using these wages to pay their loans. Previously, they were demanders, they were producing the aggregate demand, but now, as the wages go down, the real value of their debt goes up. They have to save more and more in order to pay their debt. This was the famous paradox of thrift, which you have read about. Now, these people, suppose they do something crazy and they go out and say, okay, I have a lot of debt, but I'm going to start buying things. Then according to the Keynesian theory, I'm going to forget about the debt. So the aggregate demand would go up and things would be nice. But they don't. They have, their debt is already very large and it's increasing. And their wages are decreasing. So they are trapped. They have to save more and more. And as they save more, they consume less. Aggregate demand goes down instead of going up. So what is needed? So you see, basically this is the problem with the self-regulation. The idea was that if the prices and the wages go down, things are cheaper, people will demand more. But actually what happened in the debt deflation cycle was the price goes down, wages go down, people demand less because their debt is higher. This is one of the key ideas of Mia and Sufi. The real value of debt increases, so they cannot demand more, contrary to the standard mechanism. So this was called the debt deflation cycle. The same thing happened in the global financial crisis. So because of this, the deflation, the decline of prices and wages, does not bring the economy back into equilibrium as it's supposed to, according to the quantity theory. In fact, the people get more and more trapped. Their debts are higher and higher. They have to save more and more. The more they save, the less the aggregate demand. And the less the aggregate demand, the more the firms cut back on the production and they reduce the prices and they reduce the wages. And so this is a vicious cycle. So instead of moving towards equilibrium, it moves away from equilibrium. Alright. Shortfall in the quantity leads to unemployment. This can persist for long periods. There is no tendency towards equilibrium. In fact, if there is debt, there is tendency towards disequilibrium. Price deflation can occur, but it can, instead of solving the problem, it can make the problem worse. Similarly, if you have excess money, this can lead to inflation, as the theory says, but not necessarily. In fact, what happens more and more is that if it is given to, if this money that is in excess supply is given to the wealthy people, they will buy up land or buy up assets. And actually what can happen is speculation. Speculation tends to lead to booms and busts, that for a while everything is going up and then suddenly the bubble bursts and it goes down. It can be a cause of business cycles. So as I've written in this slide, it can lead to inflation, it can lead to speculation, it can lead to increased imports, or it can lead to nothing if the money is put into a bank and nothing is done with it. So there is no guarantee that doubling the money supply will double the price level. It can also have a lot of benefits. It can reduce unemployment. It can lead to increased production. It all depends on what is done with it. Okay, so I'll stop here because it's 3:30, and you can arrange for a class time for later on in the week and communicate it to me, and then we will arrange things. Okay. Subhanallah bihamdihi subhanallahil azim. Barakallah.